One of the greatest challenges of 21st century is to solve the critical environment problems of the global warming, water scarcity, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Climate change is a stark reality today, and to mitigate its adverse effects is the only path forward. Regions with a weak social and economic infrastructure, mostly in developing countries, will be the least able to cope without assistance to prepare and respond. To finance concrete adaptation projects and programs in developing countries that are parties to the Kyoto Protocol, an adaptation fund was established. India is on the move, driven by aspirations of economic growth and powered by its youthful energy. And behind this phenomenal rise of the new India is the contribution of rural India. The growth of rural India is in fact powered by specialist institutions. The National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development is a sterling example of one such specialist institution. Since its inception, Nabard has played a transformational role in eradicating underdevelopment in rural India by protecting the environment, empowering rural diaspora, especially women, credit and refinance, funding rural infrastructure, initiating development activities, and supervision of rural cooperatives and rural banks through policy advocacy.
Global emissions of greenhouse gases are on the rise. Even with our efforts to bring net global emissions to zero, the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will continue to increase in the coming decades, and average global temperatures will continue to climb. This makes it imperative for us to adjust to both the current effects of climate change and the predicted impacts in the future. Nabard has played a leadership role in natural resource management and livelihood support through initiatives like watershed development, tribal development, etc. In our attempt to mitigate climate change, Nabard has facilitated 40 innovative and high-impact adaptation and mitigation projects. Out of these, 6 adaptation and climate resilient projects were financed by the Adaptation Fund Board. The Adaptation Fund project in Andhra Pradesh is aimed at restoring degraded mangroves through an integrated mangrove fishery farming system. The rehabilitated mangroves serve as cyclone shelters, besides facilitating breeding of edible fish and crabs, providing fodder for livestock, improved biodiversity, and providing alternate livelihoods to people, thereby enabling them to be resilient to the impacts of climate change. While in the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, considered to be the most vulnerable to climate change, through the Adaptation Fund project, Nabard has rolled out various interventions to improve the adaptive capacity of small and marginal farmers, including hill women, by resorting to climate-smart farming with the technologies, social engineering and capacity building processes inbuilt. I am confident that the best practices evolved through these adaptation projects can be successfully scaled up for enhancing the resilience of vulnerable communities.
Nabard is a story of a billion dreams, a billion aspirations, and a billion smiles.
Namaskaram. Life permeates us and is all around us. We need to have an eye and awareness to experience life. We sustain our lives by consuming the food from the plant and animal sources. In India, we call this as prana, the life force. The prana in food nourishes our own prana. At a meta level, we are talking about some type of energy. There is also energy in all the physical phenomena we experience: the sunlight, the wind, the gentle breeze, the comforting rain, or the mighty hurricane. Human activity has been disturbing these energy flows and the fine equilibrium. It is in our own interest we set this right. We are presenting 2 such best practices of course correction we made. One is from Andhra Pradesh in the southern India, and the other is from Uttarakhand in northern India. In Andhra Pradesh, we rejuvenated mangroves. We have seen the erosion of seashore stops. We have seen the fish and crab production improved, and it has supported the livelihoods by many standards. In Uttarakhand, we have rejuvenated the springs in these mountainous regions. We have seen the water resources improved by manyfold, which in fact has improved the crop and animal based livelihoods. From these best practices, we can infer that the whole world is living and is connected. In India, we call this as Vasudeva Kutumbakam, one world family. Let us feel this powerful feeling and live that powerful feeling with all our sincerity. My best wishes and a big thank you for being a part of Vasudeva Kutumbakam.
In India, nearly 100 million people live along the coastline and rely on climate-dependent activities like agriculture, marine fisheries and aquaculture. Today, the livelihood security of these coastal communities is under stress due to urbanization and industrial development, which has led to a high rate of coastal environmental degradation.
The coastal areas along the Bay of Bengal is highly vulnerable to disasters like cyclone. Every year we will be getting 2 to 3 cyclones along the coast.
In 2015, Project Conservation and Management of Coastal Resources has a potential adaptation strategy for sea level rise, funded by Adaptation Fund Board, supported by Nabard and implemented by MSSRF, came into existence to address hard and stark coastal problems. The project is designed to link ecological rehabilitation of degraded mangroves, utilization of saline lands for livelihood development, and preparing the communities for facing the climate change challenges through adaptation measures.
The project is very important to build the adaptive capacities and climate resilient livelihood options for the stakeholders and the local community.
The Forest Department, Government of Andhra Pradesh provided permission to restore 200 hectares of degraded mangroves in Solaragundi extension.
ఈ మడాడవులు అభివృద్ధికి పునరుద్ధరణకు రక్షణలో అటవీ శాఖతో పాటు ఎన్జిఓస్ లైక్ ఎంఎస్ స్వామినాథన్ రీసెర్చ్ ఫౌండేషన్ వారి పాత్ర ఎంతైనా ఉంది. అట్ ప్రజెంట్ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో ఈ మడాడవుల అభివృద్ధికి పునరుద్ధరణకు రక్షణకు వివిధ ఫండింగ్ సోర్సెస్ ద్వారా ప్రణాళికలు తయారు చేసి సన్నిహితంగా ఉన్నది.
We have implemented this project in Krishna district in 3 villages, namely Sorlagundi, Nali and Baswanipalayam. In this project, we have restored nearly 200 hectares of degraded mangroves, where we have planted more than 3 lakh saplings.
Trainings were organized for local community, other stakeholders, NGOs, forest department staff, particularly on mangrove restoration techniques.
ఒకప్పుడు ఈ పర మీద మడమొక్కలు లేకుండా ఖాళీగా ఉండేది. సముద్ర నీటి మట్టం పెరగటం వలన సముద్ర తీరం కోతకు గురవుతూ ఉండేది. స్వామినాథన్ రీసెర్చ్ ఫౌండేషన్ వాళ్ళు మేము కలిసి ఈ పర మీద మడమొక్కలు నాటాము. దానివల్ల తుఫాన్లు గాళ్ళు రాకుండా మా గ్రామాన్ని కాపాడుకుంటున్నాం.
We have also demonstrated integrated mangrove fishery farming in abandoned shrimp farms in 50 hectares.
Under the integrated mangrove fishery farming system, mangroves are integrated with fish culture. This is a new kind of farming system wherein conventional earthen aquaculture ponds are modified in such a way to provide about 30% of the area for raising mangroves and the remaining for fish cultivation.
ఈ చెరువులు ఖాళీగా ఉండేవి. స్వామినాథన్ ఫౌండేషన్ సంస్థ వారు ఈ చెరువులను తవ్వించడం జరిగింది. సంస్థ వారు మేము కలిసి ఈ చెరువుల్లో మడమొక్కలు పెంచడం జరుగుతుంది. పోటు వలన ఈ చెరువులకి నీరు పెట్టడం వల్ల డీజిల్ ఇంజిన్ ఆ ఖర్చు తగ్గుతుంది. ఈ చెరువుల్లో పీతలు రొయ్యలు చేపలు పెంచుతున్నాము. మడమొక్కల వల్ల ఆ చేపల పెంపకం లాభసాటిగానే ఉంది.
We have deployed around 10 cages in the backwaters of Krishna, and people are rearing fishes up to 100 grams of sea bass in that cages. Then they were selling to the farmers for further rearing.
Under this cage farming method, juvenile fish from a hatchery or those caught from the normal fishing operation which is usually discarded, are reared in confinement to market size in estuaries. Marginalized fishing families from the project village were mobilized into groups. They were trained on various aspects of cage farming, including site selection, cage construction, feed management, and farm management.
మాకు చెరువులు పొలాలు అలాంటివి ఏమీ లేవండి. మాకు స్వామినాథ రీసెర్చ్ అండ్ ఫౌండేషన్ వాళ్ళు ఈ కేజీ కల్చర్ మీద మాకు ట్రైనింగ్ ఇచ్చి కేజీ కల్చర్ చేసుకోమని చెప్పారు మాకు. ఇందులో మేము 2 అంగుళాలు సీడ్ వేసి దీన్ని 100 గ్రాముల వరకు పెంచుతామండి. 100 గ్రాముల వరకు పెంచి మేము లైవ్గా అమ్ముకుంటాము. వీటి వల్ల మాకు బాగా లాభంగా ఉంది. దీనివల్ల మేము స్వామినాథన్ రీసెర్చ్ అండ్ ఫౌండేషన్ వారికి కృతజ్ఞతలు తెలుపుతున్నాం.
The impact of the project has been a resounding success. Mangroves replanted on 200 hectares for coastal protection. IMF-SS farms developed on 50 hectares of abandoned fishing farms. 10 cage cultures for sea bass farming initiated. The Himalayas are the most vulnerable to climate change. The Himalayan glaciers are retreating at a faster rate than the global average. Within the Himalayan range is the border district of Champavat in the state of Uttarakhand, India. Champavat is the least developed district in Uttarakhand, and climate change has accelerated the process of degradation of the natural resource base here.
In last few years, this region has seen sudden extreme events, and the communities are really at risk. So against this backdrop, I think this project is very important, and the uniqueness of this project is that it has focused on the multi-sectoral approach that we need to adopt, because it is the farming community who is really at risk, and these are the smallholder farmers. Essentially, the farming system of these smallholder farmers is based on crop and livestock, and both these crop and livestock are highly climate sensitive sectors or livelihood support system.
आज से 30-40 साल पहले हमारे यहाँ काफ़ी क्लाइमेट जो था बहुत ही ठंडा था. वो टेम्परेचर जब बढ़ना शुरू हुआ तो सेव की बर्ड्स नहीं बनी, सेव नहीं निकले. जब जो सेव आए तो उनकी क्वालिटी बढ़िया नहीं थी, तो धीरे धीरे हमारा सब चौपट हो गया.
Climate resilient agri practices is conceived by Adaptation Fund Board, developed and propagated by Nabard and implemented by BAIF.
2016 में नाबार्ड बायफ ने अडेप्टेशन फंड के अंदर एक क्लाइमेट चेंज प्रोजेक्ट हमने स्टार्ट करा. पहला कंपोनेंट था हमारा कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजेशन और उनको अवेयर कराना कि क्लाइमेट चेंज हो चुका है, उसे हम कैसे अडेप्ट करें.
The project included water resource development, climate resilient farming practices, improved animal husbandry, forest community ownership, and women empowerment. Water resource development included natural spring regeneration and recharge measures, rooftop rainwater harvesting tank, drip and sprinklers for water use efficiency, water channelization for improved access to water near houses, and water lifting using solar pumps.
11 परिवारों ने पहले अपना एक समूह बनाया. जलवायु परिवर्तन योजना के तहत से नेपियर घास लगवाई, ट्रेंचिंग खुदवाए, तालाब बनवाए और पेड़ पौधे लगाए यहाँ पे, ताकि हमारी पानी की जो नोले में कमी आ रही थी उसकी बढ़ोतरी हो जाए करके.
For climate resilient farming practices, several initiatives were taken. Vegetable cultivation under protected conditions using low cost bamboo based poly houses, conservation and revival of niche native crops in Himalayan region, promotion of temperate and subtropical fruit species plantation, participatory fodder and silvipasture development on degraded community pasture lands known as वन panchayats on the private ones.
बाइक के द्वारा हमें पेड़, आड़ू के पेड़, खुबानी के पेड़, अखरोट के पेड़ और सेब के पेड़ मिले हैं, जिससे हमें बहुत फ़ायदा हो रहा है. पॉली हाउस से भी हमें बहुत फ़ायदा होता है. उसमें लगातार हम सब्जी पैदा करते हैं, जिससे लगभग हमें 50-60 हज़ार की लगभग इनकम हो जाती है.
हम इसमें सब्जी उगाते हैं, टमाटर, गोभी, शिमला मिर्च और मटर, और हम इससे साल भर में आमदनी 60-70 हज़ार रुपये कमा लेते हैं.
Most of the families here have their own cattle. With scientific and modern technology interventions, milk production increased drastically. The use of artificial insemination methods helped in providing healthy Jersey cows.
पहले कठुआ गाय थे जो 2-3 लीटर दूध देते थे, अब उसकी नस्ल सुधार कर बाइफ वालों ने जो है कि असली नस्ल के इंजेक्शन लगा के 15-20 लीटर दूध देने वाली गाय बना दी है.
We initiated forest community ownership. This involved restoration of community forest lands, plantation of local indigenous varieties, and establishment of one panchayat samitis.
महिलाओं ने मिलजुल कर सब पेड़ पौधे लगाए। वाइफ की तरफ से हमें बहुत लाभ मिला। यहाँ हमने एक समूह बनाया, पानी भी मिला पीने के लिए, हरी पत्ती मिलती है, सूखी पत्ती मिलती है, लकड़ी मिलती है। यहाँ से बहुत सहायता। पहले हम कितनी दूर जाते थे, सुबह 9 बजे जाते थे, 3 बजे घर आते थे। अब हमें यहाँ नज़दीक से बहुत लाभ हो रहा है, बहुत सहायता मिल रही है इस जंगल से।
To bring women to center of development and decision making, we initiated women-centric community-based organizations or SHGs.
हमारे समूह का नाम जय मां संतोषी है। हम प्रति महीने 100 रुपये जमा करते हैं और आपस में लेन देन ब्याज सहित वसूल करते हैं।
The impact of the project was tremendous. Of the 4,000 population, over 800 families and over 500 women farmers benefited. 5.5 MCM water augmentation was established through 15 spring regeneration. 26,000 man-days of work was generated. 136 hectares of forest regeneration. 120,000 trees have been planted. Women SHGs are now able to generate savings up to rupees 26 lakhs. Rupees 25 to 35,000 net average annual income enhancement has been witnessed per family. Productivity leap is 35% in agriculture, 25% in horticulture and 50% in dairy production. 101 strong and vigilant community-based organizations have been mobilized. The collaborative efforts of Nabard, Adaptation Fund, BAIF and MSSRF to adapt to the changing landscape has crafted the success story of the communities in Krishna Delta, Andhra Pradesh, India and Champavat in Uttarakhand, India, a silver lining and role model for replicating developmental projects in areas facing adverse effects of climate change.